Welcome everyone to our webinar, Efficiency Through Innovation, Technology Use in Dairy Farming. We believe the farm businesses of the future must optimize food production, farm profitability, the environment and people. The RASE Farm of the Future initiative identifies and shares agricultural solutions, technologies and practices which can help farm businesses, people, and the wider communities to thrive. This webinar is brought to you by collaboration between RASE Farm of the Future and the Climate Farm Demo project. Now, the Climate Farm Demo project has 1,500 demonstration farms in 27 EU member states, as well as Serbia, Switzerland and the UK, and will strengthen European farmers' capacities to implement, demonstrate and uptake climate-smart farming practices across Europe, targeting a 35% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. It's a 7-year-long project ending in 2029. Now, my name is Richard Lloyd. I work for Innovation for Agriculture, and I am the thematic lead in Climate Farm Demo for herd management. Now, farm resilience is now inseparable from climate change mitigation and adaptation. Climate smart farming will become core to the future food production and farm business sustainability. Actually, herd management is a great area to work with in climate smart farming, as the majority of the best practices lead to greater efficiency and profit. As you know, this webinar will be recorded, but we have a great agenda for you. We're starting off with Dr. Jeffrey Bewley on the benefits of precision technology, followed by Kat Webster on integrating systems and making the most of data, and then Kat works from DeLaval. Then we have Robert Mallett, a farmer from from Wiltshire, not Devon, on the insights of a dairy farmer, and he uses technology in the form of Cow Manager, and we'll follow with a panel discussion. And so our first speaker, the other things you need to know about is we won't take questions through the presentations themselves, but we will have a panel session afterwards. So if you could post your questions in the chat, we will then put those to the panel of speakers at the end of the following the three presentations. So again, our first speaker, Dr. Jeffrey Bewley. He's a dairy analytics and innovation scientist with Holstein USA. He's actually, I first met Jeffrey back in 2016. I was inspired by his presentations at the University of Kentucky. He's a multi-award winning scientist who actually is also equally at home in the cowshed. So Jeffrey, over to you.
All right, thanks Richard, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you all this afternoon in the UK. It's morning here in Kentucky. So I'm going to talk about what I see as a lot of the benefits of working with precision dairy technologies, and it's really been the area where I've spent most of my time in the last 20 years, and I've seen a lot of successes and some failures, of course, in the technology arena during that time frame. And it's been an interesting and fun journey to work with all the different technologies over the years. I've worked with over 50 different dairy technologies at this point. Overall, I think there are a lot of benefits of working with technologies on farm. There are many technologies that help improve animal health and animal well-being, that improve reproductive efficiency, environmental sustainability. There can be a lot of economic benefits of working with these technologies, and many of these technologies do improve labor efficiency. I think it's always important to think about the history of where we've been in dairy technologies, and reproductive management is the one shining star in technology. There's been
Jeffrey,
so much.
If I can interrupt, I think we're not seeing your slides.
Oh, okay. Reproductive management has been a shining example. There's so much that's been done with these activity monitors to help us manage the animal's reproduction. The estrus behavior has been such a successful example. There's more that we've learned from these technologies about estrus physiology, calving detection, and even pregnancy, or perhaps more importantly, open detection by identifying those cows that are coming back into heat. These are some examples of some of the activity monitors. All of them are accelerometer based. If you don't know what an accelerometer is, it's a device that measures motion in 3 dimensions. They've been applied widely across the world in a lot of different applications. And the one example that most people are familiar with is the Fitbits or Apple Watch or whatever that measure activity on people. And that's all we're doing with these technologies. We're measuring activity or other behaviors of the animal by putting these devices in the cow's ears, on the cow's legs, on the cow's necks, in the rumen, or even on the tail. And we're really simply just looking at a change in activity level around when that cow's in heat. You can see an example of an activity level here. Of course, there's normal variation in activity within a cow. And then when that animal's in heat, there's a dramatic increase in activity, followed by a return back to a normal baseline. And that's really been that key success for estrus detection. So we have all these different technologies that have also provided us with a lot of information with regard to animal health. The wearable devices like we just saw, rumen boluses, a lot of automated health monitoring technologies, measuring things like rumination behavior, eating behavior, and temperature. And all this has provided a lot of valuable information for early disease detection, reducing vet costs, and improving the welfare of the animal. The neat thing about these technologies is that they can often do a better job than what we can as humans in watching the cow, because they're watching the cow 24 hours a day. And because of that, they can be better than visual observation for detecting when something's going on wrong with a cow. By identifying a disease earlier, we have the opportunity to improve our treatment outcomes. We can identify herd level problems faster, and we can be more proactive rather than reactive. These health alerts provide us instant alerts when the cows show signs of illness. They're evaluating, again, these cows all the time, and they can help us tremendously with managing the health of the animal. And they can also help us reduce antibiotic use. So they can help us with antimicrobial stewardship by reducing the needs for antibiotics for sick cows on the farm. These technologies can also be used to help us manage a condition like lameness, because they can identify a cow that's becoming lame earlier when our chances of successful intervention are higher. This will help us to reduce lameness, to improve mobility, and improve milk production. Overall, there's a lot of additional information that can be used from these technologies that can help us better understand the behavior of the animal, better understand the comfort of the animal. We can monitor things like resting time and lying time, social interactions, feeding patterns and resting patterns and movement patterns. All of this can provide us valuable information that can help us improve the welfare and environment of the animal that we're working with. So an area that's particularly important for us, where I live, is heat stress. And I understand you guys in the UK have been dealing with heat stress a little bit more in the last couple of years. It's always been something on my mind. But the technologies that we have can really help us in managing heat stress through temperature monitoring. We can provide feedback loops to adjust the conditions of the barn or parts of the barn automatically with technologies. We can use these technologies to understand better when to activate our soakers or sprinklers and our fans. And all of this can, of course, also improve milk production and improve the comfort of the animal. In the end, all of these technologies, all of the combined effects of improved reproduction, improved animal welfare, improved animal health, can help us to increase milk production, which does improve the environmental sustainability of the farm. I think sometimes we forget about one of the best things we can do to improve the sustainability of the operation is to have more output per animal. We can also use this data in new ways. So I think there's a lot that we can do with data through artificial intelligence, like looking at lactation cycles to predict future performance of the animals, to use the real-time milk yield data to optimize nutrition and create more valuable nutritional strategies with this technology. Another important factor is thinking not just about how much animal is giving today, but how much she's giving across her lifetime. So we can use this technology to help maximize lifetime production, not just today's production, and to improve dairy cattle lifespan by doing a better job with managing disease detection, managing nutrition, and managing reproduction. We can get more lactations per cow, higher milk production in that animal's lifetime, and all that, of course, also leads to improved profitability. Another area that's of particular interest to me and to the Holstein Association here in the U.S. is what we can do with precision breeding through genetic tools. Genomic testing has provided us with a lot of valuable information to continue to improve the animals that we're working with every day. We can do a better job with our breeding programs. All the increased adoption of beef on dairy fits into this technology adoption also. And we can use this information to improve decisions about which animals to keep in the herd and which animals to select for the next generation. There's, of course, a lot that we can do to improve feed efficiency through automated feeding systems, reducing overfeeding, reducing waste, and so forth. There are technologies that we can use to help save water on our farms through water consumption monitoring, cleaning systems for water, irrigation systems. All of this, of course, helps us to reduce water waste, lower the cost around the operation, and improve the sustainability. Along those same lines, there are new technologies that are helping us to manage manure better. That helps us to keep the animals cleaner, helps us to better able monitor nutrient monitoring. We can even capture some of the methane, and all of this can help us to reduce greenhouse gases and better utilize that important nutrient that we have on our farms. In the whole, all of this can help us to reduce the dairy's carbon footprint. More efficient use of technology and manure reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Again, all of that comes through improved feed efficiency, better use of water, ultimately lowers the carbon footprint of the animal and improves the sustainability of the dairy farm. There's a lot that can be done in terms of labor savings by using these technologies that can help reduce the amount or the type of labor that's used on farms. Some of that comes through automated monitoring systems. It allows the workers to be able to focus more on high value tasks and ultimately improves labor efficiency and reduces operational cost. So we have all these technologies like robotic feed pushers, automatic calf feeders, barn scrapers and milkers, and all of this again reduces the overall operational cost. The robotic calf management system is a perfect example of that. These calf feeders have enabled us to improve how we deliver nutrients to the animal. They provide valuable information for health monitoring. They better utilize and understand when to wean calves, and ultimately this leads to improved calf health, improved growth rates, and some labor savings. So how do we leverage this data to make better decisions on farm? One of the ways is to integrate data from multiple sources, and our next speaker is going to be talking more about that. We can do more predictive modeling to look more into the future rather than just looking at the past. We can create customized reports for the individual farm, and all of this information helps us to make better decisions, more precise herd management, and improve profitability of the operation. We do need better solutions for integrating this data, and we're starting to see more of that come on to the market today. things like cloud-based systems, more centralized farm management, and I think we'll continue to see better solutions for that moving forward. An area that I'm increasingly excited about is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is changing our world every day and is opening up all kinds of new opportunities for forecasting the future, automating decision making. These machine learning systems help us to learn from scenarios on the individual farms, and again, helps us to improve our decision making on farm. In the end, economics is a really important part of sustainability. The increased productivity, the cost reductions, being able to get better premiums for producing a better product ultimately impacts the economic sustainability of the farm. We have to think about how we can embrace these new technologies on farms. They can provide a transformational impact for the farms, and they are changing how dairy farms operate every day. Again, there are many benefits: improved animal health, animal reproduction, sustainability, economics, and labor efficiency. And as these technologies continue to evolve, there will be even more advancements for technology on dairy farms. So we need to think about how we can embrace these technologies to sustain our competitiveness and sustainability. There are a lot of trends that we'll see that will change how we look forward in technologies. Again, AI is going to be an important part of that. I think blockchain technologies will help with transparency in the supply chain. Our next generation sensors will even be more accurate and provide more real-time data for use on the farms. And we'll see more and more technological advances revolutionizing dairy farming as we see it. We'll see more robotic innovations, autonomous feeders, health assessment robots, and barn cleaners, more use of AI, and we'll continue to see that advancement in all those things that we've talked about so far. Thank you for your time this morning. I'm happy to turn the floor over back to Richard.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for that really great overview on what's happening in sensors and dairy farm and efficiencies. Now, don't forget, please post questions in the chat, and we will answer them in the panel session coming later. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our second speaker, who is Kat Webster, a dairy advisor from DeLaval. And Kat will take us through how DeLaval integrates its different sensor systems, makes the best use of the data, and the whole aim of this is to improve farm efficiency and profitability. So, Kat, if you want to share your screen and your slides, over to you.
I'll try and get this right the first time, hopefully. Thank you for that very informative presentation, Jeffrey, and thank you for that, Richard. So, like Richard said, my name is Kat Webster and I work for DeLaval, and I work as a dairy advisor, and what that entails is working with the herd management systems and working with the farmers to be able to get the most out of their systems. So over the next few slides, I'm going to be going through and talking about how the sensors and technology out there can help the farmers, you guys essentially, increase your efficiency on the farm and increase the longevity of those cows. So at the centre of our herd management assortment is our management platform, for example, which is called DelPro, which is a data collection point, and it uses different sensors across the board, across conventional and automatic milking systems, and from milk meters, milk analyzers, body condition scores, and many, many more. So it's going to go perfect. So, okay, so let's, I suppose, start with what we describe as the ultimate in dairy technology, which is the automatic milking machine, or as most of you call it, I suppose, the milking robot. And this piece of technology just doesn't automate the milking process, but it reduces labour and has countless benefits for the cow, such as the ability to pick and choose when they want to be milked, This promotes udder health, with higher yielding cows having greater opportunity to milk. And you're probably all sat there asking why, because I know I certainly would. And this is a result of the cows being in charge of their own routine. The environment becomes stress-free, which benefits and improves cow longevity as there is less human interaction. Therefore, the data is playing a huge part with the automated milking and enabling you guys to make informed decisions about your cows on a daily basis. So going on to, I suppose, monitoring the udder health, this is one area where we feel that sensors and the data play a role in helping to improve the udder health with the milk quality, and the type of milking system is irrelevant in this instance. So just by using something such as ICAR approved milk meters, you receive more than just data on the milk yields, so you're able to have blood and also conductivity on each quarter. There is also another sensor, which is a milk cell analyzer, which can be added to the robots, which gives you a somatic cell count on each quarter on a daily basis. By having devices and sensors such as these, they aid in early detection of mastitis, allowing the cows to be treated before cases become more serious, and enabling you to treat them before any physical signs show. And this is helping to reduce antibiotic usage and increase the amount of saleable milk, which overall contributes to the increase in efficiency in your dairy production as you're taking a proactive approach on your farm. So there are many different wearable products out there, like Jeffrey said earlier on, and that plays a contribution to monitoring a cow and herd's health. And these products can vary from ear tags and collars, and the list can go on. An example of what we got out there is called behaviour analysis. And this system aids in finding sick cows from monitoring and eating and rumination trends, lying down and resting data. It gives you the capacity to locate and reveal the time spent in various areas in the barn and identifying cows that are in heat. The behaviour data plays a vital role in early identification of issues which could have been overlooked and has a knock-on effect on the milk production, fertility and vet costs, which is what we're all trying to reduce. Monitoring fertility and heat activity is important, and the main reason for culling on a dairy farm is due to fertility issues such as poor conception rates. And with the costs of heifer replacement rising, we feel that optimum fertility performance is vital for cow longevity, which will result in the overall efficiency of your herds. So understanding a cow's reproductive status can be made easier just through having robotic milking, and this is achieved through measuring the progesterone levels in the milk. Just by measuring those levels in the milk, you can gain valuable insights, just not only confirming pregnancies, but also detecting heats earlier than other traditional methods. In addition, cows with reproductive issues are automatically flagged on the system, providing you with an earlier indication of the likely cause. This allows for early identification and intervention even before the breeding has officially even begun. And the benefits of this is cows can return to cycling sooner, and treatments can be more precisely tailored to each animal's specific progesterone profile, supporting better reproductive outcomes across your herd. And as we all know, when it comes to dairy cows, one of the most important metrics that will determine a cow's overall performance is their body condition score. Body condition score has an impact on a cow's health, reproduction, and milk production, as we all know, as the fat tissue is an important buffer in the cow's energy system. By taking regular measurements of the body condition score, a task that can be automated with a body condition score camera, you can easily identify cows at risk of metabolic disorders or those that have difficulty going into calf. Trends can also be analysed for the herd to identify whether the feeding strategies for the herd are appropriate throughout the various stages of their lactation. So concentrate feeding represents one of the most significant expenses on a dairy farm. so ensuring it's directed towards the cows that need it the most is essential. While individual feeding is often linked to boosting milk yield, it also plays a key role in helping high-producing cows better meet their energy demands. This targeted approach supports improved body condition scores, which in turn enhances reproductive performance. Ultimately, it contributes to greater cow longevity and increases the average number of lactations within the herd. There we go. There's the next bit on the animation. So with so many sensors generating raw data on the farm, the real challenge for dairy farmers, for you guys, isn't just collecting the information, it's making sense of it. Hence why DeLaval have introduced a new performance platform called DeLaval Plus. And this platform is building on our data management platform DelPro to offer smarter data management. And this system is designed to help farmers turn complex data into actionable insights. Because today the main challenge is not just collecting the data, it's how to use it effectively. And we feel there are two ways that this can be achieved. So firstly, we feel that the data should be organised and shown through a smart user-friendly dashboard like the one shown on the screen. And these dashboards help farmers and you guys quickly see what needs attention, monitoring trends, and make the right decision to improve your herd management quite quickly. Secondly, we also use artificial intelligence, and the AI looks at the data together and finds patterns that would be hard for a human to see. This is making disease detection more accurate and allows for earlier alerts and earlier treatment. But all this data and information is only as useful if you know what to do with it. And as a manufacturer and service provider, our first question to you is, how can we help? How can we support you in improving efficiency, enhancing cow longevity, and increasing the number of lactations? To achieve this, we focus on helping farmers get the most out of their data. That's where we believe advisory and support plays a vital role. By working closely with you guys, we provide training and guidance on how to use your systems effectively and interpret the data it is really telling you, empowering better decisions and stronger herd performance for yourselves. That is me done. So I'd just like to say thank you all for listening, and I shall hand back to Richard now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kat, for that great presentation. Now, next up, and I'm running through quickly now because we want to have plenty of time for the panel discussion afterwards. So on that point, please do get your questions onto the system. I'd like to introduce Robert Mallett. Now, Robert is a dairy farmer from Wiltshire, that county with an awful lot of grass at the moment, just like everywhere else in the UK. And he's one of the 130 UK climate farm demonstration farms. Robert was Farmers Weekly Dairy Farmer of the Year and was an early adopter at using the Cow Manager ear tag system. Now, even though it must be very daunting to speak to an unseen audience when you're not used to it, Robert has kindly agreed to speak to us about his experiences and the insights he's gained from using the Cow Manager system. So, Robert, over to you. I think we're not seeing the full. We're seeing the individual slides, not the individual slides, but the. We need to go to presentation mode. You can. Yeah, do swap there. That should work. If you swap that, yeah. No, okay. Try the presentation mode in the top right hand corner of the. It's up to you. Carry on like that, Robert. We'll see the slide and the next slide coming up, or Yori can do the slides from here if that's what you want.
If we could just try the display settings again and click that, that usually works. So we'll have a crack at that.
Display settings.
And then swap presenter view and slideshow. Might do the job.
Does that work?
No, it's all right. I reckon you just crack on like that, and we'll be fine, I think.
Okay. Right, so I'm a dairy farmer, North Wiltshire. We milk 230 cows on an autumn block calving system, 3 times a day, doing nearly 11,000 litres. We're main calving block at the moment. We've calved 60 cows in the last 10 days or so, so busy time for us, but great weather for calving. There's no mud around anyway. You can see the crop in there. It's varied with the last couple of years. Has been wet and now very dry. All our replacements are born early in the season and calve at 2 years old, which is a big advantage of block calving, that they all can be treated as almost a single animal in a block. We're on a liquid milk contract, so we don't get paid for solids, so volume is what we need. And because of a TB situation, we've adapted our system so that we rear nearly all the beef cattle, and they're fattened at 14 months old. And that works really well because the calves are reared outside in August and September, and then the beef cattle are gone at 14 months to make room in the shed for the next generation coming through. Can you hear me all right, Richard?
Yeah, we can hear you fine,
Good.
Robert. Thank you.
What hasn't been mentioned today is the actual cows, which I think is quite a big omission, actually. People forget about cows looking at technology. I've always focused on breeding the best cows I can. This is a little while ago now, but this is the PLI ranking of our herd. So our cows are in the top 1% for PLI, Profitable Lifetime Index, and in the top 1% for lifespan. Their average lifespan is 89 days above the average Holstein, which is significant. You know, they are much better cows than the average, and therefore much easier to manage and last much longer. We've done this just by using sex semen since it was available 15 years or so now of using sex semen. So all the cows here are bred by sex semen, and the best genomically tested bulls. We've not genomically tested many of our own cows, but we've used the best available genomically tested bulls to breed these cows that are high PLI, highly productive and long lifespan. And replacement cost is one of the things that has been mentioned, but it's easily forgotten. Actually, if a cow, if you can get your replacement rate from 20% to 25%, that gives you a lot less heifers to rear and a lot more mature cows in the herd, which are obviously more productive. That's just a graph of the PLI against the national average, so you can see we're approaching double the national PLI average. Anyway, what I want to talk about was cow manager tags. This is a cow manager tag. It's just, as Jeffrey said, an accelerometer which is mounted in the cow's ear. It monitors behaviour and temperature. This is the typical output you get from it. So cows are very predictable. If you don't upset them, they do the same thing every day. This is just a graph of their rumination, their eating, their resting, and their active behaviour. So if you don't disturb them, they do the same thing every day. They're very, very predictable. That's very useful because the thing that does change in their day is if they're in heat, in estrus, and they have a characteristic increase in activity, which we all know about, but also a drop in rumination. They spend the same time eating, but there's a characteristic drop in rumination, which you can see is this green line here. So this basically artificial intelligence makes it very easy to detect cows which are in estrus, and I know don't use and haven't for a long time used any form of manual heat detection. I rely entirely on Cow Manager to spot cows bulling, and it's much more effective at it than I ever would be standing there watching them. So you can see this is an individual cow with her heats 21 days apart. Predictable and obvious. The other great thing about Cow Manager is it monitors cows, as I said, eating behaviour. So this is a cow which happened to have an LDA, 135 days calf, which is not what you'd expect. But you can see on a particular day her rumination just dropped off, her eating behaviour dropped off, and that that the system will flag up that cow is not behaving as you would expect. You perhaps wouldn't expect to find an LDA, but that was what it was in this particular case. I don't think that cow survived. She wasn't worth treating by the time we got sorted. But it just shows you the potential to spot cows and identify what the problem with them is. Perhaps more positive, this is an individual cow who had a similar incident that she stopped eating for a couple of days. And the point of this is that you can monitor what their behaviour, what their response is. So a cow like this that I'd spotted, that cow manager had spotted as not eating, I would obviously go and look at her, try and work out what's wrong with her. As a first line resort, I'd give her probably anti-inflammatories. Just try and make her feel a bit more comfortable, a bit like taking ibuprofen. If you've got a headache, if I can make her feel comfortable, less in pain, she'll carry on eating and her own immune system will kick in and deal with whatever the problem is the hope. And you see in this case, it did. This cow made a fairly good recovery within 24 hours, started ruminating and eating again, and dealt with the problem without the need for antibiotics. So that's meant that antibiotics have become almost the last resort rather than the first thing that we use in the event of a cow appearing sick. The other thing we get from Cow Manager is the nutrition module, and this is just an example of the difference between a good transition and a bad transition. It takes a bit of explaining perhaps, but this straight line is the day that the cow calved. The brown line is the average eating behaviour of that group of cows, and the black line is the individual cow's eating behaviour. So you can see that they all have a dip. The brown area is the average of the group. You can see they all have a dip. They obviously don't eat as much on the day that they calve. A good recovery as a cow, getting back up to eating more than she was, spending more time eating better than before she calved within 10 days, which this cow clearly did. Both of these cows calved on the same day. They were same age cows. This one you can see had a really good transition. So this is saying at 22 days in milk, she was given 67.7 litres. This one, say, calved the same day, had a poor transition. You can see she didn't really eat very well for 14 days post-calving. Don't know what the reason was particularly. But the effect, and even though she got back to that position in 22 days, the effect that her peak yield or yield at 22 litres was, at 22 days, was 43 litres against the 67 from that one. So the lesson is that you can learn how important it is to get this transition right. If you can spot a cow that's stopped eating and do something about it at this point here, rather than to this down here, you can boost her from that sort of performance to that sort of performance. That is the sort of useful, practical information that comes from Cow Manager. And I like to think that over the years, I've learned to spot what's going to cause problems in transition cows in particular, and proactively prevent it rather than dealing with it afterwards. And basically, it's calcium metabolism. Calcium is responsible, it's necessary for muscle contraction. So we all know what happens with a cow that's short of calcium at calving if she can't stand up, but also subclinical calcium deficiency will mean she doesn't push the calf out properly, she doesn't push the placenta out properly, and her gut won't perform properly because it obviously relies on muscles as well. So she'll be less efficient at digesting the calcium too. Calcium metabolism around calving is absolutely crucial. You get that right, I like to think everything else follows. If a cow is healthy at calving, gets up and eating, pushes their cleansing out, the fertility will follow. So as I said, we rear our calves outdoors. Perfect weather for it at the moment. This is last year, you might point out, where it's green rather than this year. And we have now just entering a trial that Cow Manager have now a module for cows, for calves, baby calves having these tags to monitor eating behaviour and temperatures, and spot any calves that are sick in the same way as it does with cows. I was a bit sceptical about it, but I went to a farm in Denmark, an organic farm in Denmark, who was doing cow and calf husbandry, shall we say. His calves were suckling on the cows, and he said that was much the most efficient way of managing it. You could put a group of cows in with a group of cows, group of calves, they'd all cross-suckle, but cow managers would tell him any that hadn't fed properly, and he'd go in and intervene rather than spend hours watching which calves weren't suckling. Cow Manager was doing that job for him, and it's relatively cheap to put Cow Manager tags on young calves. So we're going to try that this year and see if it's as effective for us. don't expect to get problems with calves in August and September, but later on in the year, there's obviously the risks of pneumonia and scares and other problems, which will, I'm sure, pick up much quicker than conventional looking at them. And that's just a photo of our calves in our system with 4 pens of about 20 calves fed in an area in the centre. Works really well for us. And that's me.
Okay, thank you very much, Robert, for your insights, and thanks very much for a great presentation. So again, I'm going to open up if all of the panelists can put their video on, and we're inviting questions from the things. Now we've got 2 very important questions come up here at the moment, and hopefully there will be a lot more. But the first one I'm going to ask you is, it's about investment really, because we've seen, is it nice to have? What's the return on capital? So really, and the question is, there's a lot of fancy technologies available for dairy farmers, but what is the real return on investment for some of these techs? Yeah, and where is it? And I would probably, can you calculate the actual rate of return on investment from either improved labour efficiency or anything else? But also, I would also add to that, most of the justification for putting these systems in is getting cows back in calf. So how then can you put a relative value on the health benefits as well, or the nutritional benefits, the transition management benefits that you also see from these? So Jeffrey first, and then we'll go to Kat and Robert after.
Yep, great question, and a very important one. It's actually the question that got me into technologies during my PhD. I was interested in the economics of technologies, and then ended up getting into the technologies themselves. It's absolutely critical that the technology has to provide a return on investment. In the end, you can maybe have a couple of toys, but just for interest, but you can't have many, or you'll sink the business really quickly. So it's very important to understand the economics of technology adoption. With estrus behavior and estrus detection technologies, the benefits of getting the cow back in calf quickly are pretty clear. But one of the important things to think about is you have to think about where you're at now. So if you're doing a great job now at reproductive management, the incremental benefit is not as big. So the return on investment wouldn't be as high. So the important thing to remember there is that the individual returns on investment are very farm specific. It's not something that we can just generally say everybody gets a 5-to-1 return on investment. No, it's not the case. It depends on the farm. But we can evaluate the economics of each of those scenarios, whether it's reproductive management, health management, or improving labor efficiency. It's very, very important that we do that. And I know that I have been involved with a number of technologies that I sat there at the end going, this is really interesting. It's really cool that I can measure this, but what can I do with the information? If you can't do anything with the information that leads to a change that provides an economic return, you have to question whether or not it's worth investing in.
Jeffrey, so Kat?
Yeah, so I would probably completely agree with what Jeffrey has said. Very good points given there. Like he said, one shoe doesn't fit all. For example, like we've got disease risk out there, which is detecting your mastitis, your milk fever, everything before actually any sign. So you're not actually having to call the vet out. You can possibly just put a bit of like udder mint on the udder before actually having to use antibiotic tubes or anything like that. And yeah, it's all farm specific, I suppose. It's not just an easy question to answer, I'm going to say. And that's sort of why we've got, I suppose, people like myself and other people out there as advisors that will come to you guys and help you, I suppose, work out what technology is best for you.
Robert?
Yeah, just to put it in context, the cost of cow manager is about £2 a cow a month, or £24 a cow a year. When we first put it in, we've had it for a long time now, so it's difficult to remember what was before, but when we first put it in, the thing I wrote is our death rate, our sliders, as the Americans call them, about half from, I think, 20 cows to 8 or 12 or something in the first year that we put it in. You know, whether it's entirely down to cow manager or not, but just that early warning that a cow's sick and doing something about it before she gets critical is definitely a benefit. Our conception rate went from under 40%, and we're now consistently over 50%. We were 53% conception to all services last year, which I know there are low input herds doing better than that, but on a relatively high input herd, I'm very happy with that. And our carbon index, which is one of those, you know, you can fiddle it how you want, but roughly speaking, it's gone from 420 to about 370 carbon index. Quite how you put numbers on financial benefit of that, I'm not sure, but they are all positive steps in the right direction. That's
Thanks, Rob. I would emphasise that a carbon index of 370 days on over 10,000 litres on a herd that you try and maximise the grazing nature of summer grass is very impressive. As chairman, I'd also like to maybe make one comment on there I took from your slides, Robert, is I think what we see in health is not just the extra longevity, but what we don't see is when things go wrong, the lack of milk income that we get. We saw that with your cow with poor transition that was on sort of 30 or 40 litres rather than 60 litres. And it's I think farmers quite often can overlook the loss in milk yield that you get that you wouldn't get if you can really improve the health or early indications of health issues that you can put right. Okay, thanks, Phil. So next question. I think this is one that again there is probably a lot of indoor herds and things like that use technology, but really, how do you see where the best use of technology is in grazing herds? Yeah, and how can we use the technology to optimize feed intakes and feed quality? Use the same order and pass if you want to.
Well, first of all, I'll say I think that other people in the room probably know more about grazing operations than I do, but I'll say some of the things like heat detection and health detection, the concepts still apply to grazing farms as they do to other farms, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Kat. Muted, Kat.
I'm just trying to think myself. It is quite a tricky question again. I suppose thinking about it, you know, you are still going to get the same data when that cow is sort of coming back to your robot or your conventional milking system. So you're still going to get the data. But I suppose, where do you see technology helping grazing herds? I'm going to pass. Sorry, Robert.
Okay, well, Robert, I think this is right down your street. So,
yeah.
Well, I mean, it's probably a slight cop out, but obviously a tight block calving herd. The reason our system works is all our cows are in calf at the end of March, and then we can turn them out to grass. Grazing all year round calving herds is bloody hard work because you've got cows doing 50 litres that are trying to get in calf. You get a wet day and you just don't get the intake. So I think perhaps it's a bit of a cop out, but that's what I would say is that the technology enables the block calving, that all the cows are in calf, and then that enables the grazing because we have got a block calving herd.
Robert, can I ask you when the cows are at grass in the spring, when you get wet days in the spring when they go out, did you get any insights from the cow manager system onto best grazing patterns, time out at grass, etc.?
Yeah, certainly got insights of learning to how they behave. And Piers Badnall, who's the grazing guru in this country, has always said that cows only need 2 or 3 hours to get 80 or 90% of their intake out grazing, and that's right. I've seen that on cow managers. If you've got a really wet day, you can put your cows, as long as they've got an appetite, you can put your cows out hungry for 2.5 to 3 hours, they'll fill up and then bring them back in the shed so that they're not trampling around the field making a horrible mess of it. And you can see that on the cow manager grazing data that they will get enough intake in a relatively short period if they're hungry enough, not do the damage that they would on a wet day. Opposite issue at the moment, there's nothing to bloody graze.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Okay, so here's one with your, I think with your crystal, if you can put your crystal balls up, is what's the biggest challenge the panel are hoping technology is going to address in dairy in the next 5 years? Jeffrey.
Yeah, so to me, there are a few areas where I think we're going to see some real opportunities in technology in the next few years. One of them is improvements in feed efficiency. So some of the new technologies that are available to help monitor dry matter intake will help us to identify the animals that are truly more feed efficient. And I think that's extremely important to the economics of the operation and the environmental sustainability of the operation. Secondly, I think we have a number of different technologies on the horizon that are going to help us to better understand and manage locomotion and lameness on farms. And thirdly, I think that there's some new technologies on the horizon for helping us to better understand the conformation of the animal so that we can breed an animal and continue to breed animals that are most functionally correct for our dairy farms.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Kath?
I suppose personally, the biggest challenge that I see is actually farmers adopting this technology, because like from my experience as well, because we've got stock at home, like, yeah, no farmer wants to adopt any technology. They like it as it is, but that is the way forward. And I suppose getting that technology out there, maybe having it as demos on there, or just, I suppose, coming up with initiatives and different ways that they can see that it actually is profitable for them.
Okay, thanks, Kat. Robert, and you might also want to address from your side, Robert, what are the things that you would like technology, what problems would you like technology to solve in the future?
Yeah, well, maybe I'm getting too old, but I'm pretty happy with what it's doing already at the moment on our sort of system. It's been such a big step forward to have care manager and this monitoring technology. I'm not quite sure where we're going from here, but I agree with Jeff about feed efficiency. I was in Denmark a few months ago and they were monitoring cows, and there are massive differences in individual cows for their feed efficiency, and that's going to be a big step forward. The other thing perhaps worries me is the competitiveness of American sort of 10,000 cow herds where they can monitor everything and get really efficient and get really every last litre out of those cows. Where's our economic efficiency, competitively going to be if we got cows out grazing that are doing 35 litres and Jeff's cows are doing 80 litres in a shed? It's a big difference in costing, isn't it?
So am I taking from that, Robert, that you think it may be that you can't afford not to take up and maximise the use of technology?
No, absolutely, got to make use of what's there, but long term, how competitive will we be in a world market with big industrialised, call them dairy units that can make use of absolute limit of the technology, and they're hybridising cows to maximise their productivity and lifetime, and all these details of the management level you can go into if you've got 10,000 cows and vets on site and whatnot, compared to us pissing about and turning out in the field.
Well, we've got a very specific question for you, which is not necessarily technology, but whether you can bring technology in the answer, I don't know. It's that TB is impacting your system. How profitable is the beef fattening enterprise per head, and what percent of the diet would be homegrown?
The beef system has not been more profitable than the cows, but it's definitely kept the business afloat this last couple of years. Jeff won't know, but UK beef price has gone from sort of £3.50 to £7 a kilo in the last 3 years or so. So we picked the right time to go into it. We feed a bit inside. I guess 90% of our feed is probably homegrown. this year anyway. I've brought in some barley, but it's a little bit of rape and soya, homegrown barley, homegrown maize silage, so 85–90% is homegrown. Margin is the margin entirely depends on what you put the price of the calf in your TB system. I'm sure Jeff won't understand that TB restricted calves are or were worth £100 or so. Unrestricted ones are worth 300 or 350 or 500 probably at the moment. If you can sell a 10-day-old calf for 500 quid, it's probably as much money as you're going to make out of it. There's such a massive influence on the TB status on the particular day that the calf is born, which overrides everything else in some ways. But it just takes pressure off it, being able to fatten our own animals and not forced into selling animals that have a relatively low value has definitely been the right choice for us.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Robert. Now a question from your chairman here. Robert, I was really interested in your slides and the data that you showed on the individual cows. Now, but that poses a question because I know you're very confident on technology and you can look at individual cows, but with more and more potential systems coming, there's a lot more data, which I think would be most farmers would just not have the time to look at. So how does a panel see you can get the best use of all the different data that you can get into making the farm more efficient? So Jeffrey first.
Well, I think first of all is to make sure you keep the most important things first. And some people like myself, I love data, and I can spend a lot of time just looking at data. And in the end, sometimes if you spend all your time looking at data, you're not getting the main things done that you need to get done. So you can go too far down that road of looking at data and overanalyzing things and like for example, on the heat detection technologies, you really only need to know the 2 or 3 cows that are in heat today. You don't need to know about what's going on with those other animals in the herd for that particular metric. So focus on what's important. I think it's important that when you think about technology adoption, that there needs to be a champion if you're going to have technology on a farm, that somebody's really there to champion what's there, whether that's the owner or a manager that's really focused on changing the culture to adopt technology. And to some degree, and it's one thing that Robert mentioned, like as you get into these larger operations, there's actually somebody that they are a CIO for the operation, a chief information officer. So somebody that really just all they do is data, and that's one of the areas where a larger farm can have some advantages. But another important point to remember there is that I talk about technology and think about technology a lot, but technology is not everything for the farm. It's only one part of the farm. It's easy to, if you get in the vacuum of thinking about technology, to think it's the only piece of the operation, but it's only one piece of the big operation.
Jeffrey, Kath, do you have anything to add?
No, it's just really touching, I suppose, on what Jeffrey said. You know, it's probably maybe adopting a new routine. So like when you sat down having a cup of tea, you maybe check the data on your phone, just a quick 2-minute check to see what's happening. Just making it very quick, simple, and that, you know, you don't have to go through all that data just to see what's going on. You can have shortcuts and just reevaluate and do it a different way.
Kat, when you say data, do you mean a specific cow alerts or going into the data itself?
So yeah, the data itself, I suppose you could just have it. So for example, with DeLaval, we have an app which you can just click into it, and then it tells you, you know, which cows are in heat today, what, and different things like that. So it's just, I suppose, getting used to doing things in a different way and making it more efficient that way.
Okay, thanks. Robert, anything from you?
Yeah, I think there very much is a danger of getting swamped in data, isn't there? As Jeff said, you know, the beauty of our block carving system is you are focusing on one thing at a time. So we're carving at the moment, and then when we're serving, we'll be focusing on fertility. You can get a lot more data on locomotion and condition and all that sort of stuff, but what are you going to do with it, really? I mean, my cows are leaner than I'd like at the moment, but they are, and they're calving well. Yeah, what can I do about it? It is what it is, isn't it? So,
Okay, thanks, Robert. A very similar question on the same lines as come up as well, and it's what possibilities do you see for linking the individual programs together?
There's a lot of opportunity there, because I think that's one of our bottlenecks in data right now, is we have a lot of different systems that kind of sit on islands by themselves. So there's a long way to go there from ideal. All that being said, I don't know that it will ever make it to ideal, because there are competitive reasons why people don't want data to be shared across platforms. And one thing that we have to recognize is that every question about, now I want to bring technology A with technology B with technology C, all that involves programming hours. And at some level, somebody has to pay for that integration, whether that's the company or ultimately the farmer, recognizing that there is a cost to that, and there are reasons why it may not always occur as quickly or as easily as we think it should.
Okay, thanks, Jeffrey. Kat, anything to add?
I suppose my answer might be a bit biased, maybe, because obviously I work for DeLaval, so it's going to be more, suppose, like if you've got one company that can offer all the type of sensors, you would probably ideally stick with them and have, instead of having all these integrated systems and people you have to contact different people. But yeah, I don't really want to say too much more in case I step out of line.
Okay, Robert, anything from your side?
well, on a slightly different tangent, we've taken a lot more notice of the beef bulls that we're using as we're fattening them now. I mean, as a dairy farmer, you just want a short gestation, easy calving beef bull. When you fatten them, you want something completely different. And there just isn't very much data out there. There are individual bulls whose progeny will fatten 40 or 50 days fatter than quicker than the average, which is a massive difference. But finding that data out and getting people to record weights and ages of animals, going for slaughter, there's a lack of data there which could benefit the whole industry just by recording, slaughter data from the problem is recording the sires. If the sire is recorded, the slaughter data is recorded, and we tend to ignore the beef side of it, but actually that's a fair chunk of our income is the beef animals, and there's big potential there, as there is with breeding improved cows.
Okay, well, unfortunately, and we could chat for hours here, we've come to the end of our time allocation. So I'd really like to thank Jeffrey, Kat, and Robert for your time and insights and expertise and sharing all that with us. I would like to draw your attention to an event on the 12th of September from the Calf Action Network, and you can it's kicking off, and you can access that from the Innovation for Agriculture events page on the web. So that's the 12th of there. Some really good speakers there. And finally, I'd like to thank you all. Thank you all for attending this as well and being part, and for your great questions. And I'd like to invite you to future webinars that are going to be put on by RVSE Farm of the Future and by the Climate Farm Demo thematic webinars that and though all of those are recorded, and you can find those on the Climate Farm Demo YouTube site. So thank you all very much, and thank you all for attending. Goodbye.
Thank you.